Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to your weekly astrological weather. This is your place to get practical and wow. Wow.
Animal Kingdom's weighing in.
The animal kingdom's like just totally alive as the sun's rising over here on Maui. But this is your place to get practical guidance for not only navigating, but thriving with the cosmic tides. We're so grateful that you're all here. Thanks for tuning in. I am Amanda Walsh, the founder of Astrology Hub. I am here with your favorite weekly weather woman, Anne Ortelee. And let's start off with our scale. What are you seeing for this week?
This week's like about 2 to 8. Not so bad. Last
wow.
Year, no, this is good. This one's a kind of quiet week. A lot of relationship drama, but it's not unexpected drama. You've already been dealing with it. But yeah, the skies are basically reasonably nice this week. So that's good. And last week, the 20 to 200, the 200 were the stock trader guys, right? Those people that got very upset. Like, what are you doing? We're losing billions of dollars. And I'm like, you're the 200 guys. Somebody in our listening audience wrote, it's the stock trading. I said, oh, it's totally the stock trading.
You're the 200 guys.
They're the 200 guys. Like, what are you, we're shorting movie theaters, we're shorting retail stores, and we're losing all this money because we're betting they're going to fail. And they were like, we're not going to let them fail. That's the square. Uranus is computers and ganging up, or gathering together, ganging up, whichever your version is, and then Saturn against the structure, right? So we have a Uranus Saturn 3 times this year, so we're in orb, so that's one of them, and I was like, oh, that's a good example.
You said ganging up against the structure.
Uranus is wants to change the structure, and it's doing it Taurus through money.
Oh,
Taurus
right.
Food, yeah, Taurus is food, or money, or things we do for pleasure. So think of the gamers, think if you have a kid or a husband or whoever. I mean, I've never really played them, but actually my sister plays games too. So think of I shouldn't be sexist. The gamers, they get like that, and square Saturn, they're going, yeah, we're blowing it up. So, yeah.
Well, it's been 2 to 200 for the last 2 weeks at least. So this is definitely a milder report.
Milder week, and then we'll go back up again when we get towards the 17th. So kind of think of it as a dip and a rise. But this is not a particularly nasty week. So that's good. We're
all right.
So break.
Tell us why you're saying that. What are you seeing in the skies?
Well, Venus goes into Aquarius, right? So the whole sky is ruled by Saturn right now. Every single planet reports into him as a boss. And one of the things astrology does when we talk to people, and they don't necessarily believe in it, they go, you say 12 signs rule everything? And you go, well, 12 signs, but the planets can all be in different signs. And depending on what sign they're in, that describes their behavior in the areas that they're in charge of, right? So I don't want to climb Mount Everest. I'd like to sit on a couch with a book. But the people that want to climb Mount Everest have that in their chart, right? So your chart speaks to you. And so when we look at planets, they also, either if they're in their own sign or a sign that they're in charge of, they rule the sign. Those planets don't have to make any decisions to be able to do their thing. Right now, every single planet in the heavens has to answer to Saturn. It's kind of like you got to go talk to the big guy before you do anything. And he's in Aquarius, as we know. He just changed signs, but they all report into him as the boss. So it's kind of like you have to ask permission of Saturn to do anything. And so all of them are asking permission, but they're all starting to be in Aquarius, where Saturn's going, okay, you've been good kids, now you get a little more freedom. And Venus this week moves out of Capricorn, where she's been for a while, very serious. Last week she met up with Pluto, which was Venus-Pluto, where we saw the riots in Moscow and all over in Russia for the guy that they poisoned, Pluto-Venus. And of course that poisoning, if you track the poisoning and all that, his story, so there's riots and 5,000 people were arrested in Russia yesterday, over the weekend. But we also see the Venus in Capricorn now moving into Aquarius, saying, no, I want my freedom. I don't want to be ruled anymore. So we're going to watch that Aquarian now. She's going to be there. But Aquarius, of course, answers to Saturn. as the traditional ruler. So still all the planets in the sky are answering to Saturn. And even when they get into Pisces, they're going to answer to Jupiter, and Jupiter answers to Saturn this year. So we're really working with Saturn a lot, but it's very much about Aquarian Saturn. It's like, well, what's your big picture? What's your vision of what you want to do for the community? So in your case, you've started the programs for kids, children, Aquarius, other people's children. You're offering new things to the community. That's what Aquarius does. It says, what's the greater good of the community? And so people are like, okay, so how are we going to do that? What are we doing? So we're all in kind of this planning mode, and that's good. This week, Venus, because she's in Aquarius, her first two aspects, she's going to meet up with Saturn, and she's going to square Uranus. So she might have a little breakup energy. So Venus, so if you've got a relationship you're in that's been having some issues, this is going to be the week when Venus goes, okay, so let's have a sit down. Let's talk about it. Let's make a plan about what we're doing about love, money, Aquarian things, computers, astrology, your how much time you're spending in the group or you're not spending in the group, because Aquarius is that collection energy. And because Mercury is retrograde now, he went retrograde over the weekend, until February 20th, we're all in review mode, because he got all the way up to 26, and he formed a hard aspect to Pluto. Well, it's not a bad hard aspect, but it's like, think about like what you really want to do. What are those kind of, how like something comes at you from the side and you go, oh, I never thought of that. So Pluto and Aquarius are having this side energy to them. Like, I hadn't thought of that. But all right, now that I've thought about it, let me figure it out. And so Mercury said to Pluto, did you think about this? And Pluto goes, not really. And Mercury's, all right, let's talk. And so they're going to chat this month through the 20th. And then they're going to figure it out through the beginning of March. So this is very much problem solving time. And so for everybody, problem solving around relationships, problem solving around money, problem solving about what your passions are, but it's already old stuff, so you on some level already know it. So that's why I'm not thinking it's bad energy. It's like, haven't you been working on this for a while? I remember one time I was in a tarot class with one of my, she's a good friend now, but the woman had broken up with her partner, and we threw cards on the class. In the class we threw cards, and the woman brought it up and got a little teary, and the teacher, Patty, looked at her and went, are you really kind of glad it's over? And the woman went, she goes, come on, inside, don't you really feel like it's done? And the woman kind of like that. And I watched, like my big wide eyes, and I went, very effective technique, because a lot of times externally I'm mourning this, but internally I'm secretly relieved it's done. Right. And that's kind of the energy of this week. And I'm okay to make the changes. I mean, I don't necessarily want to, but I know I'm okay to do it. And that's what Venus says. She goes, aren't you really kind of glad it's over? And we go, and then we go, yeah, in my heart of hearts, I'm kind of glad it's over. I'm not worried about it anymore. Doesn't mean I'm not going to miss it. Doesn't mean I don't love it. Doesn't mean it wasn't wonderful, but I'm okay. Yeah.
And you're saying this is mainly in the area of intimate relationships, or could it be in other aspects?
All the Aquarian house, but it's Venus talking to Saturn and Uranus. So of course, Saturn and Uranus have that three squares this year. So she unites people from seemingly opposite sides. So we had AOC and Ted Cruz agreeing that the stock thing was wrong for different reasons. So it's actually a place where we can find agreement with people we don't agree with, but we also have this, oh, okay, I get it now. I see it in a different way, right? And that's okay. That's what Mercury retrograde lets us do. It lets us look again and see, well, have I changed my opinion now that I've thought about it a little more or not? Perfectly willing to keep your old opinion, but you get more information on Mercury retrograde than you had before. And Venus is going, now that I know that, what I think I need to do is this. And that's the energy. So it can be very gracious and very grateful because, you know, it's the saying, it's not you, it's me. I can't do this anymore. And then what is the person going to say? It's not about you. It's about me needing to do something else. Right. So.
Okay. Sense? Yes, it does, Anne. And you said something about this Mercury retrograde. You said something about through the 20th of February, but then you also said something about it going through to March.
Yeah, so we have 3
shadow period.
Mercury entered his shadow on the 15th of January, and he goes over to here, and he stopped yesterday at 20. It entered his shadow at 11, stopped at 26, I think it was, and now he's going back to 11, where he gets on the 20th, and he stops, and then he has to go back and clear his shadow of 26, which is in March. So he has a 1, 2, 3. Now think about all the things that do 1, 2, 3. 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready and go, right? So that 1, 2, 3, you know, and so that's what retrogrades do is they say, here's the problem. And you go, oh. And then they go, okay, what's the solution to the problem? Oh, and then they go, okay, now implement. Right. So it's a 1, 2, 3 energy. And it literally looks like that in the sky. Like if you Google the image of retrograde, which I encourage everybody to do when they hang up from watching this, Google retrograde image, and you'll see the little sky, the little star go like this. It looks like a Z, but it's going forward, then going back. And from Earth's perspective, we know planets don't actually back up, but from our perspective on Earth, they seem to. And what that is, you know how you pull up in a car next to somebody and you look over and you both look like you're stopped, even though you're going 60. And then you pull ahead and they appear to be looking like they're going backwards. And then comes the time when they start to move forward again. So it's an optical illusion based on our perspective on Earth looking up at the heavens. But when we watch the planets go retrograde, the astrologers go, it's actually RE retro. So any RE word works. Revise, revisit, redo. And I always think of Mercury retrograde as the ghosts coming back to talk to you. And it's also a good time to review your plans or finalize your plans or come up with ideas. It's not, you know, people get very crazy about Mercury retrograde. I'm like, no, it's not bad. It's just pay extra attention to communication because there can be misunderstandings. The good news is Mercury's in Aquarius, which is one of his exaltation, its place of his exaltation. So Mercury's really smart. You might not like what he says to you, but he's not lying to you. He's telling you the truth. And so that's the good news. He tells you the truth under Mercury retrograde or under Mercury in Aquarius. And he goes, this is the truth. And you have to go, okay, so what's the truth? So I find it fascinating. You know, we watch him when he goes through certain signs, you know, he shows us the range of things we can believe or the range of things. And one of the nice parts about Mercury in Aquarius is he goes, well, you know, this says this, but this says that. So where do we agree? So as we're entering his shadow, we have AOC, liberal, agreeing with Ted Cruz, conservative. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's Mercury in Aquarius. He lets us find a place of commonality. So this is also a great time if there's somebody you're not talking to because of whatever, to call him and talk to him. Because this, you know, your ghosts are supposed to appear. And obviously if your ghosts call you and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about that problem we had. I'd like to talk to you. You're not mad at me anymore? You know, like if you get a call like that, take it. Because this is the time when you can go, I agree. I understand what you said. I agree we're going to disagree. And that's okay. But we're now able to talk again. So that's helpful, I think. You know. And of course we get to redo things. So that's the other energy is like, you know, I was working on a newsletter yesterday, a couple days ago with my assistant. And I dictated and she types it, right? And so MailChimp ate what we dictated and completely gone, her notes, everything. So I dictated it again and it came out better. You know, like I'd had a couple more days to think, and Mercury had actually gone retrograde in the time, you know, I dictated before it went retrograde, and then it ate her stuff and then a new version. So it was kind of like, all right, Mercury retrograde, what are you going to do? And back up your computers, back up your cell phones. With Neptune so active right now, lots of flood energy, water floods, that kind of thing. So the cell phone can be attacked, your computer can be attacked. I did a reading yesterday with Denise, and she's like, my computer, we spilled a bunch of water on my keyboard. I'm like, oh, Mercury retrograde on your keyboard, Neptune. Yeah. So we did a phone thing. Yeah. So it's understanding that Neptune is wanting to saturate and soften things because he's aspecting your home and hearth. And then Mercury is saying, yeah, like, let's think about it. Let's look at it. Let's talk about it. Let's consider it again. You know, Con is with, Sitter is stars. Let's work with the stars. And so take those calls if your ghosts call you. And if there's someone you're not talking to, there's a great opportunity for Venus to step in and have some opportunity to change relationships or adjust relationships. You know, or break up with relationships. I'm good with all of those. But you actually are going to be like, all right, I'm good with that. You know, it's not a bad thing. Yeah.
Right. Okay, Anne, we have a lot of people in the inner circle asking about contracts, signing leases, signing different kinds of contracts. Are you a don't sign contracts during Mercury retrograde type astrologer or not? And
no,
why?
I'm well, two things. One, you might have Mercury retrograde in your chart, in which case you should totally sign it. You might have Mercury retrograde by progression in your chart, in which case you should totally sign it. No worries at all. The world goes well for you. There's a guy in the New York community who is Mercury retrograde. He's a lawyer with Mercury retrograde, and he settles his cases during the retrogrades. And that's when he makes his money. So he knows when he's going to make money 3 or 4 times a year, because that's when his cases are going to settle. So I'm not a be afraid of the heavens. I'm be conscious of the heavens. And a lot of times, so is Remo. And Remo actually has Mercury retrograde.
That's so perfect.
He's here to come talk, bring us his tail, which is it's definitely a Mercury part, because his tail talks. But yeah, I'm be conscious of what goes on. A lot of times Mercury retrograde wants us to understand things. So, you know, I'm a Virgo, so I keep track of dates. And when I first started studying astrology, I went back and looked at all the installations that I had that were really kind of nasty, you know, like and they were signed during Mercury retrograde. But the struggle, the conference, the process was really instructive. And I'm of the heavens are teaching us stuff. They're not trying to punish us. You know, that's my belief system. So I'm not a doom and gloom astrologer. Be afraid, be very afraid. I'm like, you know, it's really counterproductive. But you double check, you pay attention, you go, I think this is a good idea. Earlier today, you were saying to Jamie, who's our backup person here, well, let's double check this. Let's check this out. That's Mercury retrograde. That's responsible Mercury retrograde stuff. It also, we always edit things. You know, if you write a letter and you pick it up a couple days later, you see the typo, you see the word you used twice. Retrograde is not a bad thing. It's just knowing that there's an opportunity for misunderstanding. And, you know, if people have to accept a job or have to do something, my assistant and her fiance bought a condo, and he got into it during the Mars retrograde and the Mercury retrograde in September. So it was a mess in terms of, you know, papers, having to redo thing, having to refile thing. And I'd said to her, you know, it was like a little, you know, like just saying you're going to have a journey here. And, you know, the proposed date of moving in November actually happened in January, but they moved in, they got it. It just, they had to do everything over again. So it's got an element of frustration, but it was also, okay, we got there. It just took a little longer, a little more process, a little more, what do we have to do again? You know, so that's why we avoid stuff then, because it does add an element of, but if you have to move, you've got to move. So, or if you take a job on a retrograde, a lot of times the job description will change. You know, I took one on a retrograde and the job completely changed when I started. And I'm kind of like, I didn't really sign up for this, but what are you going to do? You know? Yeah. So don't be afraid, just double check stuff. Yeah.
Right. And the changes that happen are things that need to happen anyways. So even if it's a little annoying or frustrating or upsetting in the moment, it's like a course correct that needs to happen. Right.
Right. Right.
And
also what happens is what you think is going to happen doesn't. So in their case, they're first time home buyers too. Right. So there were a whole series of things that were out of their control, that they had no control over, that were kind of normal processes. And so when she would say something to me, I'd go, oh, didn't you, whatever. No, we didn't know we were supposed to. I'm like, oh, okay. So there should actually be a course for first-time home buyers.
Oh, yeah.
Well, because they went through this journey, and now they know better. That's Mercury retrograde. And, it's the school of life, Yeah, so.
Definitely. Yeah. I got accused last week of being, of overdoing the Mercury retrograde thing, because I was just looking at our website and I was like, why is this there? We need to change that. What's going on here? And, firing off all kinds of all these things need to change. But it's like that moment of, wait, let's look at this and make sure that it's where it needs to be, and whatever needs to change, let's change it. What about trickster energy during because you said, I know, because
Mercury's favorite job.
Yeah, Mercury can really have that trickster element, right? Mm-hmm. But you said because Mercury's in Aquarius, and I don't know if you said it's because Mercury's in Aquarius, but you did say Mercury's in Aquarius, so you're going to see the truth. So can we trust, or that sort of moving target thing with Mercury? Is it not as much the case because Mercury's in Aquarius and retrograde?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk
about Mercury trickster energy, right? Because Mercury, especially people with strong Mercuries, right? Or strong mercurial energy, the Geminis and the Virgos, they have strong and of course, don't give a Virgo a system that they can't improve. And Mercury is always like, well, maybe we should do this. Oh, now maybe we should. Oh, maybe we should. Maybe, they kind of are always kind of a movable target. So the idea with Mercury in Aquarius is it's a community placement, meaning the community is going to be seeing things and going, oh, wow, that's what's going on. But it also has an element of showing you something you don't necessarily want to see, but you have to see it. So the analogy I used in my newsletter this week was the O.J. Simpson trial back in '95. And when the verdict came in, it came in on a Mercury retrograde, and half the country was split, but at the same time, both perspectives were valid, right? They both had a reason why they believed what they believed, why they believed the verdict was justly found. And it represented their deep truths. So the point of astrology, and then this is a hard part to get, is when you look at the chart, you see the person's truth. And Mercury in Aquarius holds the truth. These truths we hold to be self-evident. And so in that case, when the verdict came in, those of you who I was saying this to Rose, and she's like, I was 5. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. Those of us that are a little older went, oh, wow. What, because everybody was shocked by the verdict, but they all had different emotional reactions to it. And the key, of course, with everything is to look at, when you get the information, what's your emotional reaction to it? Because that's your truth, not necessarily the truth. And one of the reasons we do juries with 12 people is really hard to get 12 people to agree, on anything. So in that case, everybody went, but it was also from their own perspective, it was a truth shifted, changed, unleashed, right? And that's what Mercury does. His job is so good at telling you things. You remember his story, where he wanted to meet his father, who was Zeus, and the way he figured out to do it was to steal his brother Apollo's cows. Took Apollo's cows. He's a baby. Apollo comes looking for the cows and says to the mother, bah, 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 bah. And she goes, it's a baby. How can you do that? And Apollo's like, he takes kid, brings him up to Zeus, to meet Dad. And Dad says, you took the cows, you got to give them back. Mercury's like, okay. And he's like, all right, you're dismissed. And Mercury didn't want to go. He didn't want to leave. So he pooped on Apollo. And of course, Apollo, the sun god, getting poop on by a little kid. And, if you ever change a little boy, they squirt you with that damn urine, right? You got first time I babysat, I'm like, holy shit, man, this kid's trying to shoot me with his pee. Pops up and shoots stuff. But when Mercury pooped on Apollo, Apollo was furious. Zeus thought it was really funny. And he goes, okay, kid, you're my messenger, right? So it's got that energy of you kind of have to laugh, even if you go, and actually then Mercury and Apollo became great friends. And Apollo taught him divination and Mercury made him his harp. And, they had this whole great relationship, but there's this little jivey energy that Mercury does where he kind of gets everything moving and everybody starts dancing. And then you go, oh, okay, let's sit down. Of course, Mercury rules music. It rules songs. Why were we so touched by that beautiful poem during the inauguration? Just is. Don't look at what just is. Look at justice. I'm like, oh man, you're good. Right. It's taking the words and helping us understand what they mean on a deeper level, because they inspire us to go, okay, let me go deeper. Let me really understand what that is. And that's Mercury's job. But he also does it. He's funny. He's interesting. He's,
clever.
Clever. AOC and Ted Cruz agreeing. Who could imagine that? I'm like, well, thank you, Mercury. Yeah.
I like what you say about that, because we have all that square energy this year. And so it's these like seemingly things that would not be able to come together. But what you're illustrating with that example is that even if they have different reasons for coming to the same conclusion, they're able to meet somewhere.
Right.
And I think it's a really interesting way to resolve this square sort of tension energy. It's like, again, we've been talking about this a lot, but where can we agree? Even if we get to that place from very different, with very different data, with very different information, with very different perspectives, can we agree on that, whatever that is? So,
then you might go, I don't agree with it, but I get why it's happening. What squares help you do is they help you see why it's happening.
Yeah.
You see a square, you pull up to a stop sign, a four-way stop, that's a square. And you look at the guy and they look at you and they go, okay, so I'm supposed to go first, but do you know that? Because I got here first. And you kind of look at them and then you go forward. It allows you to become aware, and if all four cars come up, everybody's like, all right, who came first? Can you rely on the other guy to know what their position is and what order they fire in. So yeah.
Okay.
But squares are action oriented and they do help us see things. Yeah. And this right now, Mercury's kind of in the Capricorn blind spots. So he's talking to Pluto. He's going to go back and talk to Pluto. And of course, all the other guys are in Aquarius. So they think he's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Anne, what would you say would be great things for us to do during this comparatively? It's funny that we say that we would even call a week with an 8 in it mild, which is just the 200 times, right?
You did not lose $5 billion last week.
Right. Yes, exactly. Okay.
That guy's mad.
What would you say would be some great strategies for working with this quote unquote relatively mild couple of weeks before we get to the 17th and beyond that?
Well, I think it is informing yourself about the other positions, right? So I know in my case, I don't normally watch violent things, right? But I did feel when they've been releasing the body cams that the police were wearing during the Capitol riots. So one of the guys, I'm a nice citizen, let me go. And they released the body cam of him beating up a cop. And it was very violent. And I'm like, oh, but I thought, no, Ann, you have to watch this. So it's making ourselves look at things we don't normally look at. I think that's the best way to do it, to kind of go, okay, I don't know about that. Let me go do it. So when you see something you don't normally look at, go look at it. Because that's how you become better informed. And I do it. I mean, I watch numbers of channels. I watch my MSNBC, I watch Fox News, I watch the multimedia. I go out and watch BBC, I watch Al Jazeera. I kind of roam around the internet and watch the different media reporting because I feel like, they're going to give me, it's kind of like the Rashomon story with the elephant. All of them were right, which is the story of taking 5 blind men and giving them different parts of the elephant. One guy thinks it's a snake because he's holding the trunk. One guy feels the ear. One guy feels the solidness. One guy feels the tail. One guy feels the legs. They're all correct in their description of what they feel because they can't see it, but it's parts of the story, So I do that. I got an email this morning from someone. Well, I said, I watch that stuff all the time because I'm trying to figure out what they're hearing what are they hearing, what I'm not, I like to hear what they hear too. I think it's important to broaden our horizons. It's Aquarius says, big picture, baby, look at everything. Don't just look in your missile silo. Go out, and because Aquarius is remember Aquarians, when you talk to them, they always have unusual life experiences. They always felt like they were not part of the group that they were raised in. Either they were weird in their tribe, their family, they were the purple people in the green neighborhood, they had Venetian blinds, everybody else had lace curtains. They always feel a little odd. So what we're supposed to do when planets are in Aquarius is we're supposed to make ourselves feel odd on purpose and go look at odd things to us. Like, I'm not going to climb Mount Everest, but I'll go watch a Mount Everest movie. I don't particularly like basketball that much, but I'll go watch the Michael Jordan documentary. It's like widening your horizons and learning something new is the best way to work with anything in Aquarius. And right now, the whole sky's in Aquarius. So it's behooving all of us to look at stuff and say, that's not something I normally think about, but thank you for showing it to me. And it's also not judging a book by its cover. I'm Aquarius rising. So I watched for these kinds of things. When I was younger, it was back in the 80s, I went to a place in the village, which was at that point a lot of drugs, and there were a lot of squatters. The city let them squat in buildings because they would maintain it. So they would throw the keys out the window. So we climbed up the stairs. I'd come from my office. I had my little bow tie on, my little corporate suit, my little Halston briefcase, and nobody at the party talked to me. Not a single person. It was they were working for the Sandinistas. They would go down and work there. I mean, nobody talked to me at the whole party for like 2 hours. I'd go out and they wouldn't talk, but I'm in my little corporate suit with my little bow tie.
Yeah.
Next day, my roommate was from Lebanon. She looked like Amal Clooney, and she was a member of Kappa Kappa Gamma, which is this very elite sorority. So I came home from work. I changed into my blue jeans. I went to a party at her house. Everybody came to her house, looked like I did the day before in their suits, with their little bow ties, with their little whatever. And nobody talked to me at that party either. Because I'm in my blue jeans and a sweatshirt, and nobody actually thought I was that maid. Help, they give me their empty champagne glass. And I'm like, all right, so it's me, same day, two different, different, but no, both days nobody talked to me. Wow. And I'm an Aquarius. I like to talk to people at parties. So I was like, wow, that is like so weird. But I got it. I didn't match. That's Aquarian. And so what you want to do is go find the people you don't match with and hang out and just watch. You don't have to talk to them. You just have to watch them and listen to them.
Mm-hmm. I found it really interesting to do that on investigating things that people are really afraid of, but also things that they're really not afraid of, that I would be concerned about, and vice versa. And it's really an interesting exercise because it's like, okay, well, yeah, if that was my data source, like I might not be as concerned about that, and so it's helping to bridge places where it just seems like, like, how can you see it that way? Or how come you're not seeing what I'm seeing? And it's helpful. And I love that, where are we judging the book by its cover and not allowing for something else to come forth, or, not seeing the person, not seeing beyond the facade. And sometimes, gosh, that I love when that happens, it'll be, That's happened to me several times where I meet someone and I it's that thing we do where we put in a box immediately just based on whatever judgments, and then to just unravel that and go, wow, there's so much here. Like if I had just written that person off, I wouldn't have gotten all those gifts from being like seeing beneath the surface. So yeah, there's a lot there.
That is Aquarian. They go, oh, you eat with chopsticks. How do you do that? Show me how you do that. And that's the higher form of Aquarius. The other thing is it's understanding it in a different way. So my uncle, my mother's cousin, was a pilot. We called him Uncle Joe, but he was a cousin. He was a pilot for Pan Am. And my mother hated to fly. And Uncle Joe was, you know, a lot of pilots are, he was a party boy. And he flew to Rochester in his private plane, you know, his small plane, because he would fly to work from Kansas to St. Louis to go to work, you know, because he lived in the fields of Kansas. So my mother was like, because he wanted to take us up in the plane. So then he's explaining to my mother how planes work and how they work and all the details and what they do and, you know, kind of showing it to her. And I could see her with this contrast of him as a wild child, crazy, out of control. And then like he flies people, you know, with a couple hundred people on a plane, you know, he's in charge of their lives. And I know it was really watching her go through that journey with him about what you do to fly a plane and kind of going like, actually, you're really pretty responsible, aren't you? You know, like there's a science to this, you know, like planes fly for a reason. And he's explaining to her about it. And I remember coming home because we went to the airport place in Rochester where he flew. I remember coming home with my mother and father in the car and my mother saying, boy, that was really shocking. You know, he was just so wild. And my mother and father talking about it and being in the back seat, you know, like this, that's Aquarian, like listening to it. And I will say it made my mother more comfortable. Never was an easy flyer, but made her more comfortable to fly. But it was Uncle Joe, who was this crazy guy, you know, drunk, wild, you know, lots of naked, you know, because that's what he did. And but then he flew airplanes, you know, kept people alive. And he had a crash landing, not a crash, but he landed the plane into the foam on JFK at one point, and everybody lived. So because his landing gear didn't come down. So it was in the newspaper. I mean, it was like Uncle Joe, like responsible, Uncle Joe party guy, both not mutually existent or not mutually exclusive. They both were him. So that's, to your point, talking to that and having your own conceptions and then going in and learning, oh, that's why you think that. Okay, that's interesting. Or where does it come from? And that's really our gift with Aquarius, is really having, let me understand this and see this from a different perspective.
So it's almost like seeking out those sort of Aquarian characters in our world and going deeper with them instead of writing off, oh, that's the crazy person. Oh, that's the, you know, yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. So we have, in summary,
and you may still think they're crazy. That's okay. But
right. Yeah.
At least you investigated. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we have a week that's a 2 to an 8. If it is an 8 for you, it's not unexpected. It's not like that really shocking, surprising, out of nowhere kind of thing. This is a time where, because of Saturn and Uranus, we have this energy around ganging up against the structure. And that can be through money, values,
kind of riots in Russia. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
All over. Watch for Uranus square Saturn, the collective fighting the authority. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we have this sort of dip and rise energy. Right now we're in the dip. The rise is going to start to happen again around the 17th.
After the new moon.
After the new moon.
Next week.
Okay. Yep. We have working with Aquarius, Saturn and Aquarius. So Saturn and Aquarius, and we've talked about this a lot in the last few weeks, but this is basically community. What is my contribution to the community? I know I've been very mindful of like, how am I making deposits? I think of it as making deposits, even not necessarily money, but energy, time, attention, money, whatever it is, in the communities, in the businesses, in the people that I want to support, that I want to see more of. And so just being very mindful about where we're channeling our contribution, whichever way we make it, to strengthen the community that we want to have around, and just being very mindful of that. Okay. Saturn, let's see, love, money, astrology, computers. We have all this groups. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. We have Mercury retrograde through the 20th of February, and then the shadow period will go through March. So we already had the initial first phase shadow, which is setting up the storyline. Now we're actually in the storyline. And then the shadow period will go from is it around the 17th through March? 20th. The 20th of February. Oh, right. That's right. Through the beginning of
17th, the 20th is the forward motion.
Right. Okay. All right. So this is a time of revisiting relationships, revisiting money, revisiting what we're passionate about. If you do have a breakup in your relationship,
anything, it can be to anything.
Not a breakup to anything.
It's romantic breakup. Like you loved it, but now you're going, oh, I see it a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So
it can be romantic, but it can be just like, no, I think I need to break up with that or change that. Yeah.
With that. Okay. It's something that probably needs to change. Deep down, you may be relieved about it, even if there is a period of grief and letting go and all these things. But maybe ask yourself if deep down this is actually, you can see that it's okay and that you have kind of wanted it for a while. All right. So we have getting more information, revising our plans based on new information. Again, this Mercury retrograde, it's revise, revisit, redo, finalize plans, pay extra attention. If you are signing contracts or if you are starting new things, just pay extra attention to the details, and that it's not don't do it, but just pay a little more attention.
Be conscious of what you're agreeing to.
Say that again.
Be conscious of what you're agreeing to. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No autopilot on those things.
No autopilot.
Right? Yeah.
Dot the I's and cross it, and ask the question, because sometimes you look at it and you go, so what's that cause? And they go, oh, nothing. Just ignore it. You're like, no. Let's go in and understand it a little bit more.
Yeah.
No. If someone kind of brushes off, oh, you don't need to know that. Just trust me. That's the thing you have to pay attention to. Yeah.
Yes. And also notice your resistance to ask those questions. I think sometimes, depending on what contract and who you're doing it with, sometimes we just want to gloss over because it's easier and it's nicer, any of those things. But ask the questions, even if it's hard for you to ask questions sometimes, and probe deeper. All right. Back up your computers and your phones.
And
yes.
Your pictures.
And your pictures. Yes. Oh my God. I was thinking about that. How many of our pictures just live in the cloud. And I just trust that. It's like, well, it might be nice to have some of those printed, or, it might be nice to have some of those in different formats, just in case anything ever were to happen to all those like treasure trove of pictures from life that are just living online somewhere. Okay. This can have flood energy. Neptune is coming in to soften the home and the heart. So that watery energy, but that also can be on overdrive, and there could be some flooding kind of energy.
Neptune is coming in. It's in a square to the nodes, and it's opposite Vesta. So it's floods around the home. I mean, on the East Coast, we're having this huge snowstorm. 75 million people affected. We're all having a snow day today. But so water, Neptune is water in all forms, but it's squaring the nodes. So it's a softening. I talked to somebody the other day, and the floor in their house had mold, and they kind of fell through the floor. And I'm like, that's a Neptune story,
Wow.
So you want to kind of just watch for what, you may find water damage, your hot water heater can go, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If someone calls you and wants to talk things over, maybe you had a disagreement, now's a good time to take the call and have the conversation. It will probably be very different than it was when you first had it. Or, other times that you've been hashing through whatever it is you're hashing through. This is a time where you could have job changes. When you get information, pay attention to your reaction to it. So there's the information, and then there's how you personally respond to it. That's where the gold is for you in looking at. Yeah. Okay.
You may find it brings up some anger, which is okay, because remember, Mercury is talking to Mars. He's in the sextile to where Mars was from July now. So you may find a flush of anger as part of it, but then go, yeah, I was mad about that, but let me understand why you did that. Or let me understand why I was mad at you about that. You know.
Okay. And this is a great time to learn something new and inform yourself about other people's positions, like seek out and understand. And we've been saying that a lot. Maybe even look in places you wouldn't even think to look in. Maybe there's places that you haven't even come into your awareness because you haven't been open to them. So maybe like actually seeking out other information so that you can not just be looking at the elephant's leg.
Yes. Look at the elephant's ear. Look at the elephant's tail. Like, understand that you have this part. And that's the other part of Aquarius. Like, it's like, okay, I do the orange juice, you do the eggs, so-and-so does the bacon, and that person over there is making the English muffin. And then we have a community breakfast, right? So it is understanding that all the little parts make up the whole. Right. Aquarius is the chorus, you know, so when you listen to a chorus and then you have the soloist step out, but it's the choir. So where are you in the choir? What's the choir you're a part of? What's, you know, what's the group that you're playing with? What's your orchestra? So finding that community and then going, oh, wow, I didn't know about that. So it's an excellent time for doing things that you don't normally do, because this is a time when you're kind of invited into other worlds. Because the door is open with Aquarius. It says, well, come look. You go, you really want me to look? And he's like, come on and look. And you're like, okay. And then you cannot look.
And then there's, would you say too, there's like doing community in new ways, right? I mean, because this Aquarius is community oriented. We have all this Uranus energy, like doing community. I think so many people would agree that the way that we live so isolated from each other isn't serving anyone. And yet there aren't a whole lot of examples of ways that, at least modern examples of ways that we can come together and share in community and share in life in new ways. So maybe seeking out different ways to come together and support each other
and connect on that level. Yeah.
Right.
And I think when we do that, we see it differently, you know, because a lot of times with the original lockdown with the coronavirus, everybody went back to their old structure and lived in it. And then they go, okay, I lived here for a while, now I get to take off again. And a lot of the parents that I know were like, it was so nice to have the kids home again. And
wait, what, Anne? I couldn't hear what you just said.
It was so nice to have the kids home again. And then the kids were like, yeah, it was nice to be home, but like, I got to go now. So it is understanding that structure and then the freedom energy of how do you, okay, now you're leaving the structure on some level and it's changing. And I think our job, you know, I heard a really good interview with Charlemagne the God, who was talking about being actively involved in the community that you believe in, working for what you believe. And that's what Aquarius says. It says, you know, it's not just up to that guy to fix it. It's like, what am I going to do to fix it? What's my job? And so we each have, with Saturn and Jupiter meeting in Aquarius, we each have a job with the community that we're a member of. Whatever that community is, we each have a job to do something more for that community. So to you, I'm, you know, like, what's the website? How are we serving the community? And, you know, it understand in your own chart, wherever that 0 Aquarius is, you're being asked for this next 20 years, 20, to serve the community in a new way. And again, you may not have a big vision of it yet, but that's the mandate. It's like, what's for the greater good of the group that you're a member of, or that you want to be a member of, you know? So it's aspirational as well as intentional.
All right, Anne, thank you so much. For those of you who are interested in working more with Anne, we are in the process of resurrecting, another reword, right? Resurrecting. Yep, some of Anne's classes that she's taught for Astrology Hub over the years. So we have her working with the Jupiter cycles is up and available to any of you who want to participate in that. You go to astrologyhub.com and look in our academy because that's where we have all the courses listed, and actually it says astrology courses at the top of the website. So you can, these are the little details that I'm
moderation that Amanda just made to the website. Yeah,
exactly. And Anne, can you tell them about the pinball method? Because that was a mastery class that you taught for us that people loved, but I'm not sure that everybody knows what the pinball method is.
Okay. Yeah, the pinball method is kind of a technique that came from my programming background, and it combines, I studied Vedic Indian astrology for 7 years, and Uranian astrology, which is the German system, and kind of put them all together, because what a lot of times people do is they think, gee, I'm having Saturn square my moon. And I'm like, go back to the beginning of the program. What did Saturn want to teach you? Now he's squaring your moon, but he did all these other things before he got there. So what the pinball was kind of a combination of my programming background that says, start at the beginning, rank your planets in order, numerological order, because that's how they get set off. So this week, everything that Venus is going to go through, she goes into Aquarius, and she's going to set off Saturn in the sky. She's going to set off Mars in the sky. She's going to set off Uranus. Boom, 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 right? And you have your own energy system that you were born with, and it gets set off every time a planet enters a sign. And it's kind of like a pinball game. When I was in college, I used to drink beer and play pinball. And you pull the ball back, and the ball goes out, and it goes ding, 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 ding. Sometimes it goes, it drops in the trough. So this is teaching you how to work with your own energy system, and then applying it. It's very helpful for counseling. It's very helpful for how you fire, because every day, the moon goes through it every 2.5 days. The sun goes through it every 30 days. Jupiter takes a year. Jupiter's going to go all the way through it by May, because he gets into Pisces in May. So every time a planet enters a sign, we get a new pinball game, which means, think about it, we have multiple layers, and it shows you how your energy flows. So when you get to a hard planet like Pluto, you go, oh, okay. So I was in Italy a couple of years ago, and my teaching assistant has Pluto at 11. So that's the age she meets. So it's kind of a combination of the age thing and age. So it's 11 days. So she kept going, 11 days, the 11th day, the 11th day. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, that's where my Pluto is. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we got to the 11th day, and didn't Pluto show up? And I'm like, holy shit, Pluto just walked in the door. Right now I have Pluto at 25. So I don't get him till the end. And, when I was 25, I had a mob guy that wanted to date me. I'm like, I don't date mobsters, And then I had a married guy, Pluto. I mean, it was like understanding the planet's age appropriateness, but it gives you an idea when they're going to show up for you. And then it allows you to work with that, your own energy cycle proactively. So the pinball teaches you that technique. And it helps you understand your own energy flow. It helps you look at the sky and understand how it's going to impact your chart. And it makes you think of the transits as kind of a flow rather than a one-off.
Nice.
Like, okay, you have this. No, you had all these things. Now you have this. And they go, oh, right. And so it gives you, like when you sit down to eat dinner, somebody cooked it, they chopped it, they made the salad, all that stuff happened before you sat down to eat. So it gets you in mind of that process. Of course, I'm a Virgo. I love the process as opposed to the one event. So it gives us a story.
That's very cool.
Bigger level. Yeah.
It's not available yet, but we are very, very close. And we just put together an awesome worksheet to go along with it to help you map it out on your own. So yeah, you guys are going to love it. It's coming soon. So stay tuned for that. I also wanted to let you know another thing that we're doing, another revise. We have heard from you, and many of you have said, why do I get the newsletter about Anne's episode almost at the end of the week? So I miss it. So what we're redoing the schedule for the newsletter that we send out, and you'll be getting it the day after Anne's broadcast goes live, so that it's more relevant, because the rest of the shows we do in the week aren't as time sensitive as Anne's. So we're going to reorient around Anne.
Amanda's doing her Aquarius. Everybody give her applause.
Yes, I'm doing the Aquarius, and I'm doing the Mercury Retrograde, right? Mm-hmm. I think Anna said, she's like, God, you're doing Mercury Retrograde on steroids right now. I was like, yeah, let's go. Let's get in there. Okay. So we're going to change that order. And then also, for those of you who receive the free personalized weekly horoscope from Christopher Renstrom, we did a survey recently. We took all of your incredible feedback. We're going to be making some changes to that horoscope too. And he's going to be including a little video each week to kind of summarize. And
he's one of my favorites. Yeah.
He's so awesome.
Want to just pinch his cheeks.
You do. And what I noticed is that anybody who has engaged with Christopher in person, and I'm just saying on video, you cannot help but fall in love with this man. He is just he is so awesome. So I was like, Christopher, can we put some video of you in there? Because I know, like, when they feel you and get to like be a part of your energy, the rest of it will all just make sense. And then you can almost hear him saying the horoscope to you, which changes. Like, Anne, I know our inner circle members are getting your cosmic updates right now, and they love it because they can hear your voice in the delivery of the messages. So we're doing lots of revising, and all to benefit you. So if you don't get the horoscope yet, you can get it. You go to astrologyhub.com/horoscope. If you don't get the newsletter yet, if you don't get our weekly summary of all the different shows that we put out, you can go to astrologyhub.com/podcast and sign up to get that newsletter. And that is a summary of all the shows that we do every week and why you might want to pay attention to them, what they're about. And also with some, insights and little snippets that I love to pull out and remind you of. I think that's it for now. And Anne's pinball.
There's a big Mercury retrograde list.
I know, and it's longer than that. That's why my team's like, oh God, you're
Anna's like, it is scary. And I'm going to say to Anna, all those planets in Aquarius, she's not done yet.
She's not done. No, I'm just getting started. All right.
Started, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you as always. It's such a bright spot in my week. And I hear from all of you all the time. It's bright spot in your weeks as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of our community. And thank you as always for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye. Astrology hug.